Okay, now for the final part of this project, there's going to be just the finished of the couple elements here, the couple of legs, and I'm going to go back and refine some things I'm not quite happy with. I think the eyes need a little bit more scrutiny, and I'm using the image a little bit too literally with those, so I think I'm going to go a little bit more spherical. So first things first, let's go ahead and finish this up by continuing to finish the tongue and the legs that we have down here at the bottom. So we're going to start in a side view, and just like usual, we're going to start with a subdivision body. For this one here, I'm just going to go ahead and start with, again, the quad ball, which gives us a little bit more multi-directional control. It is a ball, but it's going to have, a little bit more when it comes to the different subdivisions that we have in here. Okay, so looking at that and kind of sticking with the transparency that we work with here, I want to take this down just a little bit so I can see through there. And first we're going to go ahead and just form up what we see here of the bottom of this foot. So I'll take some of these lines along the bottom. Again, that was a little bit too much there, but I'm just using some pretty simple methods here to line all of these up. Try not to make this too exotic, but it very much is like working with spliner geometry, because in essence, that is kind of what we're dealing with here. What you actually see here is something that is very organic in shape, but the reality of this is that there's a cage that actually is controlling this. It's very prismatic, and it's much like a style spline where it's got some prismatic linear inputs of construction geometry, but that influences a curve, which is the ultimate final geometry. That's kind of how we can work in both directions here. There's great times to pull up just the cage view here so we can see how transitions are happening and if faces are folding back onto each other. But then when we're working in the final product view here, the organic view, that gives us a final shape, if you will, what we're looking at. All right, so I have some stuff up here in the top. There's a little bit more that probably needs to drop down as a result of that. And I'm just using, techniques, again, like I would use if I were working with a product that's, spline-based. Adobe Illustrator is one that always comes to mind when it's when I'm using these types of techniques here. So I'm trying to use some window selecting because that affords me the selection of things through the model that we have here. I'm not quite happy with the way that this little transition took place. So we're just going to kind of take that edge instead of just that face or those points, and we'll take that down. But that edge allows me to go ahead and change a little bit of the control angle that we get in there as well. Okay. All right, I like that. Let's get that a little bit closer there. Maybe, roll it in and kind of scale it down. Okay, that's kind of what I was going for. Better. Okay, so now I want to kind of add this leg portion to it. And I'm choosing again to use things like extrude to add a little bit of material to this. I feel that's a pretty fluid and intuitive way for somebody who comes from a mechanical design background maybe to go ahead and work with these kinds of shapes. So adding that little extrusion there is going to give us a nice little bit of material to work with. And by selecting faces and moving those faces, more or less stay the same except for having to maintain their tangencies, but that gives us a lot of control over where that face goes and the scale of that face as well as we're making some changes here to the final geometry. Now I'm going to choose to go ahead and extrude that up one more time. That's going to give me a nice little subdivision inside of here as well, and adds another loop. And that looks pretty good because at the end of the day we're really going to go ahead and blend this and do a multi-body join right up here at the top. Now, this gives me an opportunity to show crease again down here at the bottom. We have this little sharp spot in his paw. So if I go ahead and crease that, that enables me the opportunity to take that and make it a pretty gnarly edge. Now, hitting the crease on the quick tools just throws a crease in there, but if you're using the toolbar at the bottom, you'll get a dialog that enables a little bit more control and allows us to perform some of those little what-ifs together. Now, I'm going to actually take a couple of these and crease them together, not just that one edge. Maybe take them all in. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and start to sharpen that, and that's kind of more probably what I wanted to do up at the tongue there as well. But that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and stick with that. And yeah, not too bad for his leg there. Beautiful. Okay, well, one of the things that we're going to do to sort of finish this up when it's ultimately going to be able to stand is I'm going to take the bottom faces that we have down here. And let's turn some transparency down again so you can see this in a very nice way. I want to select all of these faces and just kind of flatten those. We're going to use a crease so that this sits nice and flat. Now, I want to select all these faces, but if I window select, what happens is, first of all, I'm getting points. So I need to change a filter to make this happen. So up here in our toolbars, we're just going to go ahead and select faces only. Now by window selecting, again, I'm going to get faces that I happen to cross, but if you look at the back side of the part, I'm actually selecting through everything. And that's not really what I'm looking to do in this situation. So right up here at the top, we have a little button that allows us to go ahead and select only the visible elements. And that way when I go ahead and do that window select or the crossing select, I'm only going to get the faces that I cross across. It doesn't actually select what's above the part. Now with those faces selected, I'm going to use my crease button again. And crease is going to take the edges of that face selection set and it's going to give me that nice crease. And I'm going to make that very pronounced. And you can see that we've now got some edges there. Although at this point, they're still just showing us kind of a creased edge. But if I grab them here a second and start pushing and pulling, you'll see exactly what's happening there. You see how sharp that is? Yeah, so that enables me to kind of do a little bit of work with that. Now, that might not necessarily be exactly where I want this one to be creased, but if I go ahead and say take this upper area right here, for example, or let's go ahead and even better, make our selection so I can grab everything again because I want to grab an edge, but let's grab this edge and go ahead and add a loop to this. So by inserting a loop, it's going to give me just another area there. And this area, if I select one line and then I hold my shift and I select one on the opposite side of midpoint in that same loop, it actually grabs the entire loop all the way around. And again, I'm going to go ahead and do a crease on that one. Now this crease will be quite emphatic on this one as well. But what this is going to enable us to do is actually select and flatten everything that we have right down there at the bottom. So if I go to a little side view now, and window select everything that we have there at the bottom. That looks pretty good. Now in this case, I don't want to only select what I can see. Caught myself on that one. So we're going to turn that button off and do one more window select that way. That's pretty good. All right, I've got all the entities I want. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and take this and say align entities by line. Now it gives me a nice little side view here. And by putting a line in place, you see that it actually creased all those faces that were selected completely flat. Now it looks like I missed this edge back here. So I'm going to cancel out of this because my selection just wasn't quite right. Maybe we'll select from this direction because it seems like I can get it really strategically. Maybe even a little too high there. Let's try this one more time. Good, that's what I'm looking for. Let's go ahead and align those by a line. There we go. Now we get this nice flat all the way across the bottom. Now I don't necessarily want that perfectly flat. So what I do is I actually go ahead and I'm going to take this outside crease and we're going to grab the entire thing. And we're going to go ahead and go into the tools because I don't want that to be completely sharp. I want it very pronounced, but I want that to have a radius to it. And that'll just put a little softness there. I can even back that off just a little bit. That's pretty good. So that's going to look, I think, a little bit more natural when it comes to this guy being able to actually sit on a table, you know, and be, you know, a useful little item and a trinket once it's going to be 3D printed. So that'll be nice. All right, now that I've got that done, let's go ahead and finish up this side. And we're going to take this particular body and let's just move him over to the right-hand side. Now, I'm guessing that these two paws are going to be close to each other in the middle, but I want to go ahead and take what I've got here and, you know, copy it to the opposite side as is before I start making some changes to it. So I'm going to exit this body here for just 1 second. And again, just using copy and paste, we'll take our subdivision and just hit Control-C, Control-V. And that makes a second of this entire body. Now with the new body, I can simply edit, window select the whole thing, and then we'll go ahead and use our robot to slide that to the opposite side of Odie. So that should be just fine. That looks great. Now while we're working on it, I'm just going to take this one here and do the work that I intended to do. And that's just really going to be taking these faces up here and kind of moving them inward a little bit and maybe kind of just joining those together into Odie himself. So it's a great little method here where once again, I'm just taking the faces in general that I need and using some tilt, I can change that angle of attack and then again, just kind of move those up planar into the other body. That actually looks quite good. I'm pleased with how those went. Very pleased. Good. Okay, and then there might be a little change there. We'll put the paws a little bit closer to each other, but for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and take that one as is. All right, we're gonna do the same thing with the back there, and I might not go ahead and record that quite as quickly, just to you know, consolidate this a little bit more, but we'll see how the tongue goes first. That's what I've been interested in trying next. So we're gonna start again with another sub-D body, and what should we choose on this one? This is always the debate with me. Now, I actually like to use a box sometimes because a box is, you know, something that can be rounded actually quite easily once you start going because it is Class A to begin with. But with something like this, I might go just a little bit more related to the roundness that we see there. And it might seem odd, but I'm going to choose a quad ball again. And with this quad ball, the whole point of this is that, you know, I can go ahead and take this thing and really just get it sort of a basic shape at this point. And then I can really just go to town and make it whatever shape actually matters. Now, at this point, you know, it doesn't look right because we're looking at this 2D image without 3D context. So what I might do on something like this is really start to go ahead and smash this thing down. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of take that quad ball and flatten it in the direction, which is the 3D direction of Odie in this case. Now, that's going to enable me to kind of make that little tongue area right there. And I'm going to have to use my imagination a bit because, frankly, this is a side view of what I want to make. You know, from a reality, I'm going to make that from the front view. So if I'm starting to pull and push and move things, we're going to start to get the shape and the angle and the contour that we want to kind of put this tongue up in position. Now, it's going to require a few more loops, no doubt there. And once we put those in, that will enable us to, again, give us a little bit more of the contour that maybe we're looking for this particular item. Even coming up here on the top, I can either go ahead and you know, add another loop, which is a real easy way, again, to deal with this. Grab the faces that we already have up here because, you know, those are in a great spot. So let's just go ahead and grab a little loop. All right, it's a nice lassoing tool there. I love that. It's common in a lot of, you know, software that's out there. All right, very good. And then, you know, maybe I'm just going to go ahead and add one more loop here. I find that if I want just a little bit more definition in an area, that's generally a great place to start going ahead and adding something like one of these additional loops in. Yeah, not so bad. Again, a little trial and error here with what I'm attempting, but you know, overall, I'm going to take it. Now, at this point, this is the only body that I'm editing, so I'm rotating this to get it in kind of a gratuitous position. And once I can do that, I can window select easily the stuff on top here, because I'm going to take this and kind of just, you know, take it and add that contour to it. This one maybe I didn't want to do. We're going to leave the tongue a little bit bigger out there. That looks pretty good. It's kind of funny. Even just doing this, but you know, this is a tool where this kind of thing has to happen, and there is a market for this kind of functionality, whether it's consumer goods down to shoes and apparel, you know, electronics. Everything has to have a contoured shape and has to be aesthetic these days, and these are the kind of tools that actually can make that happen. So when you're trying to do this in a mechanical design tool, that isn't necessarily the best environment to make this happen. And that's really why we're going through this exercise, is to maybe give you an idea that there is a better place to create things, or a better way to create the geometry that maybe you can do in SolidWorks, but isn't necessarily the best place to do, right? I'm sure there's a bunch of that you can agree with that. Okay, I could go all day with this one. We're going to go ahead and stop with that one. All right. Odie is looking pretty good here. I'm going to wait till the end here and we'll go ahead and colorize them, and maybe I'll, you know, tweak this tongue a little bit more here, because again, I kind of notice things and get a little bit compulsive on that, but it really doesn't take a lot to make those refinements. Just hopping right back into the feature and then hopping right back out of it. Okay, I think in order to finish this, you know, appropriately, we'll go ahead and add the hair there in just a second. There's some whiskers on the side of his head, but I think I should just go ahead and finish up by grabbing this back leg and finishing it, because it's going to be a lot like the front leg. So I'm actually going to go ahead and once again do kind of a copy and paste, you know, a Control-C and a Control-V of that subdivision. It's going to give me a whole new subdivision body. And at the end of the day, we're going to use Boolean operations to join these together. But if I want to take something like this and you know, just copy it so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel, that really works quite well. And that's got me quite a significant amount of the geometry of this last piece here done. So that's actually a great method for what we're trying to do. So here, let's go ahead and just add an extrude, which is going to, you know, serve for this portion up here. And I'm curious what will happen if I add an extrude right here. Interesting. Let's go with that for a second. I don't like the way that my robot really looked from that direction, so I'm going to just scrutinize it a bit and click and right click it, and we're going to go into the XYZ. That's much better position for what I'm trying to do. Maybe let's go ahead and take these faces out. I don't know, maybe this front edge. See what we're getting there. Yeah, that's actually not too bad. Maybe we'll take this and kind of move it into Odie, because, you know, he's got some legs there. So, this is really interesting just how things work out, right? I really have no idea what he's going to look like in 3D, but I'm kind of accidentally making it, and it really is a phenomenal kind of look to this. I think I've got enough here to go ahead and just take this final leg and just copy him to the opposite side. I want to mirror this feature, actually. Let's see if we can go ahead and use some of those kinds of of productivity tools for what we're trying to do. So I'm going to take that subdivision body and I'm going to hit the mirror. So the plane that we want to do is going to be this plane around the middle. That's just going to go ahead and take that body and just give me a whole opposite side of that. Right? Easy peasy. I could have done that a couple of other places, but you know, I really didn't think about it. I know that sounds silly, but that's all right. I think at this point, I'm really obsessive compulsive. I want to put the whiskers on the back of his head. I've got to do it. I've got to do it. Okay, so final subdivision feature here. This one here, again, we're going to go ahead and just kind of take a quad ball, I think. A quad ball is the simplest thing, but the reality of this one is it just has to be very, very small. This is going to be right in the center of the screen. So if I just take that very, very small, look at that. That's amazing that I can even do that. And then we'll just take the portion that I need on this half of it and just start, you know, kind of manipulating a little bit here. It's really just artistic. It's artistic. That's all you can say about this, is that it's a different way of doing things, and it's very artistic, and that really kind of makes it fun. Now, I don't know that what I did there is very good. I'm going to back out of that just a touch because my selection was a little bit haphazard. I'm kind of excited that I'm almost done with this, frankly, and I wanted to see, you know, if I could just kind of quickly buzz through that. But, you know, let's go ahead and take everything that we've got here and let's just, you know, kind of be clean with this. I need to go ahead and make sure that it's a little bit lower, maybe in a little better position. That's not so bad. Okay, good. Now I'm going to take the end of it, that the shape and size is a little bit more in the ballpark, and we'll start to twist and move that down. Now I want more access and control in the middle here. So again, quickly adding a loop, taking that loop, and I could probably wait till later, but I'm going to do it right now. Taking that loop and moving it in, and you know, let me just take this thing all the way down and in, give it the angle that I want it to have, and then we're just going to actually go ahead and add a couple of loops. And if you use the toolbars, like I said, with the crease, you get an interface. And if you use it for a loop, then you get an interface here as well, where I can actually do multiple loops at the same time. This is really going to help because now I can go ahead and grab just the stuff in the center. And as I go ahead and start to, you know, narrow that a little bit and move that up, the curvature here is going to go ahead and be more natural. Let's go ahead and narrow all that together. I think all of this really could use to be just a little bit shorter and not in that direction. So using our manipulator once again here, our robot, we're going to control this a little bit better in this direction. And let's go ahead and take this and make it just a touch more narrow. I'm going to go ahead and grab each one of these as we need to. Now, as a final little tool that the robot does afford us, it's not only going to give me the opportunity to grab different loops and points and selection sets to change these shapes a little bit. This probably is going to take me more than any other feature that I've done even on this whole part. Kind of funny how that works out. But with these kinds of things, what it also allows us to do is kind of change the orientation that robot is in. So if I want to drag this stuff in a direction that's a little bit more perpendicular here, when I click on the robot, not only can I change its automatic orientation, but I can drag it to different edges. And if I drag it to a different edge that maybe it reorients linear to that or to a plane or to something else, that just gives me another way to control exactly how that's going to look on screen. So I want to make that a selection, and then as I go ahead and drag this thing around, you'll see that as I put it on things, it's going to reorient. So there we go. Maybe I grab everything that we've got here, and now I can go ahead and drag that more in the direction that we're looking for. See, right there in that direction. Great. All right, now from the top, I know I want to narrow this a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and take just this bottom section here and maybe go ahead and start to narrow that down. And then from there, a little fine tuning. And we're going to be in great shape. All right. That's pretty good. Okay, let's see what we got there. How's that look relative to the image? Gotta get my buttons clicking and missing here. Okay, maybe I want to narrow this stuff right up here, maybe a little bit more as well. So I'm going to use my Alt key to really narrow that stuff down in all directions. Great. Great, great, great. Okay, very good. Now, at that point, you know, we kind of got a finalized little part here. We'll go ahead and just copy and paste that one, and that will serve as the final body that we're going to go ahead and create here in this project. All right, look at that. We'll take the whole thing and just kind of change its position a little bit. Perfect. All right, looking good. Okay. Oh my, take a look at that. Now it's taken a little bit of work, and again, there was no prep done on this whatsoever prior to beginning. So it's not one of those things that really was affected by demo magic. Now I'm going to finish this up and do a little bit more of the fine tuning with colors and maybe go back and play with those eyes again there. But essentially that was raw. That was an hour and 20 minutes of just kind of feeling it out and grabbing some tools that I don't use that often and just seeing what they can do and getting more comfortable as I go. And that's really what I wanted to show everybody with this, is that these tools are amazing and they're purpose built, and there is geometry like this everywhere in the world. If you're working for Disney, you're making stuff like this every single day. If you're working for consumer goods products, you're working on stuff that's going to contain mechanical components, but the outside shell of that needs to be as organic as possible. And these are the tools that make it happen in a very, very quick way. So with that, let me just kind of finish up and do a little bit without any commentary, and we'll kind of make Odie look a little bit more like I want it to. But thanks for watching, because it was really important to show that just sitting down and working does take time, but the final results are very attainable, and the more you use it, the more comfortable you get. And frankly, with a tool like this, it's pretty fun too. So I really appreciate you hanging with me. If you like this type of content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down there at the bottom. And while you're at it, hit the notify button so you'll make sure that when we upload new content, you're not going to miss a thing. Thanks for watching. I'm Darren at GoEngineer. And with that, once again, I want to thank you for hanging with me for this 3-part series, just showing you how a raw and uncut process actually looks. It's fun, it's rewarding. You create things that, frankly, I would never be able to create this even in SOLIDWORKS with my 25 years of experience. It's a game-changing tool for what we have in the industry, and it complements mechanical design in a great way. Till next time, I'm Darren at GoEngineer. Bye.